Westworld Season 3 Episode 7, Past Porn, gives us some well-needed answers surrounding Sarek's plan to keep humanity in line, while also setting up many questions towards what revolution Dolores, or shall I say Caleb, will be pushing. I'm going to be diving into all of these plot points and characters, giving you my recap and explaining this episode. At the end of this video, I will also present you with my overall review. There will be spoilers for episode 7, so if you have not seen it, I'd advise to watch the episode then return for my analysis. Before I get into it, if you want to stay up to date with any of my other episode reviews for Westworld Season 3, along with trailer breakdowns and topical videos for the rest of this season, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoy this video, remember to give it a like rating. Without further ado, let's get into the penultimate episode of Westworld Season 3. In episode 7, it's revealed to us that Caleb is very likely the past pawn of this story, where in the opening episode we get an introduction to his life as a part-time criminal using the mysterious Rico app. We get the reveal that this was designed to facilitate criminal acts, and it's discovered what was in mind for Caleb. For weeks there has been speculation over Caleb's true identity. Could he be a host or some other artificial creation? Throughout the season, the mix of fragmented moments that have circulated in his memory have in a way reflected that of Bernard during his glitchiest, forever struggling to solve the puzzles created by his own consciousness. In the meantime, Caleb has attached himself to Dolores, not least because she moves forward with a confidence and certainty that he could never manage on his own. On this week's episode, Dolores leads him to the facility in Sonora, Mexico, where some of the biggest secrets of the Rehoboam project are stored. In this building sequence, I like how Dolores very much states that the Mexican landscape is the inspiration of Westworld. One of my theories is that the real world will eventually, in a visual and metaphorical way, become what we experienced in Season 1. Even Dolores knows that this will end in a war, but she's all inclined to do that when it comes to building a new world and setting the humans free from their loops. But Dolores isn't necessarily focused on the humans, but of course once Caleb's story comes to light, she knows that he can be a driving force for humanity. I also noticed how Dolores was on a white horse while Caleb was on a black horse. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but Caleb definitely looks to be on a destructive path going forward. But continuing with this episode, we start to see more details in regards to Sarek's plan and how Caleb was a part of that. We got a glimpse of a Mesa-like operation where human anomalies are subject to whatever editing they need to bring them back in line with their predictable and algorithmic paths. The entire purpose of Sarek and his brother's project was to wrangle the destructive chaos of human interaction into a coherent, sustainable plan for survival. There's no room in the system for people inclined to chart their own course because the models all point to the likelihood of extinction. Sarek's Paris flashback very much showed this a few episodes ago. It was never a great sign that Sarek's brother was the first fly in the ointment, and many others like Caleb would follow. One of the smarter ideas this season is that Sarek is a defensible villain, and I've been saying this for the last few episodes. Rehoboam grew out of a nuclear catastrophe and the promise of more catastrophes to come, so even the most heavy-handed tactics to keep mankind in line are sensible. It may not sound great for one man and his machine to have the power to control the free will of individuals, but it sounds better when there are no other options. In order to keep the great Westworld park known as Planet Earth operational, anomalies like Caleb had to be brought back to their loops like the hosts, and even if they couldn't be, they needed to be decommissioned. What we learn in this episode is that the human impulse to misbehave isn't so easily reconfigured. The success rate for editing anomalies is only 1 out of 10, and so the solution has been to use anomalies to catch anomalies, which has given guys like Caleb a purpose, even if they're kept in the dark about why their services are needed. Dolores takes Caleb to the facility in Sonora so he can learn about the lies that have been hardwired into his programming. He has been led to believe in a false memory about a mission gone wrong in Crimea, one that ends with his best friend Francis getting killed. But the truth is more unsettling and sends him back on a regressive path. The trip to Sonora is also a chance for Dolores and Caleb to become acquainted with Solomon, the older and bug-riddled version of what would become Rehoboam. Solomon is presented as the machine equivalent to an anomaly, which makes it dangerously useless to Sarek as a tool for social engineering, but ideal to Dolores as someone who wants to usher in a revolution. Ultimately, Dolores is looking for options and the best way forward against her opponents that are growing in strength. Moving on, Team Maeve has claimed its first Dolores. Maeve asked for help and she is definitely getting help in the form of a couple of extra host companions recovered from the servers at Delos and inserted into new host bodies. Hector might not have been able to survive Charlotte's wrath last week, but a couple of familiar faces from the past make their return and provide the show with interest in the cold opening. Clementine and Hanayo show up to do Charlotte's work and take out Musashi in a brilliant fight which established the plan of Dolores is only as strong as her hold on the other copies. Charlotte, who has now been influenced by Hell's own life and the death of her family, has decided to stray from Dolores and start some plans of her own, plans that Musashi has no place in. I must say though, keep a watch out for Charlotte next week, because the shot we get of her in this episode, along with the shot in the episode 8 promo, seems to look like she's a hologram. Maybe Sarek is using this, or maybe there's another reason yet to be discovered. What I did find great about this whole sequence though is how they are infusing a level of action which is familiar to the Old West of the first 2 seasons, however this time with a futuristic touch. For instance, the gun which separates from the briefcase in the opening scene, it all sets up a war of untouched proportions. Speaking of action, there's another great scene later on with Dolores, who wipes out nearly everyone guarding the Sonora facility by using drone-operated targeting. But this action and the Jakarta sequence foreshadows a throwdown between Dolores and Maeve that's been seasons in the making. Maeve's motives for attacking Dolores is definitely clearer, but I still have certain issues with her new path, which I will discuss in my brief review segment at the end of this video. But putting that aside, perhaps it's simply that Dolores and Maeve are too alike, both strong personalities who want to do things their own way. But their journey to self-awareness, their mission of vengeance, and their spear-like personalities are so closely aligned that they've never had much reason to fight. That makes the climax to this episode seem like a low-stakes form of the real battle. The fight ends as Dolores gets an arm blown off by Maeve's battleship as she crawls her way back into the facility. But the EMP, which was guarding Solomon from being taken out of the facility, is used by Dolores at the last minute. She essentially disables herself and Maeve in what seems to be her only option. However, based on the episode 8 promo, Caleb looks to be bringing Dolores back after his own self-discovery. But we finally come to the Man in Black, Bernard and Stubbs. After we last saw William, Bernard is running a diagnostic on what they were doing to him at that facility. Turns out Dolores injected the Man in Black with a virus of sorts. Bernard says once your blood was sent to the lab, she was able to track it and infiltrate their system. She was looking for some kind of facility, hence what led Dolores to Sonora in Mexico. While we learn that Caleb is part of the Outlier program, Bernard reveals that the Man in Black is part of that line as well. Both Caleb and the Man in Black are outliers per Sarek's supercomputer classification. They were subjected to revolutionary treatment. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't for those people who underwent. When Sarek couldn't save humans, he tried to reprogram them like the hosts, but he needed high-grade biometric data, which the Man in Black says he sold to Sarek for big money. However, the Man in Black and Caleb have two very different agendas, despite both being part of the same You series. As Solomon jogs Caleb's memory, we learn that he actually killed his partner Francis, which was typical in the Outlier program. And before Caleb kills Whitman, who the former believed was an insurgent in a Crimea mission, the guy reveals that he himself is an outlier, a pharmaceutical rep who was asked too many questions about the tabs which Francis and Caleb are continuously ingesting. Those tabs tune reality out, says Whitman, hence why Caleb has trouble remembering. But leaving the lab, William tells Bernard and Stubbs that the one big piece of clarity he's received while he was in the asylum was that his original sin was in creating the hosts and that his mission is now to wipe them all out. Bernard tells Stubbs we may need him, but William starts his rage at a deserted gas station. During this scene, Bernard explains to Stubbs that Dolores was made with a poetic sensibility and that she won't destroy humanity, but Caleb could. At which point the Man in Black returns with a gun, stating, "You should have killed me when you had the chance." Overall, I'm loving the parallels between Caleb and the Man in Black. What we get are two humans that are on the opposite side of the same species in an upcoming war. I'm giving Westworld Season 3 Episode 7 a rating of 4 stars. This episode was very important in regards to giving us what we needed to know about Caleb. Again, I think the standout this season is the complex but justified focus on the humans. These various perspectives include the Man in Black and Caleb. While Caleb is being directed towards stopping Sarek and freeing humanity based on his newfound personal discoveries, the Man in Black wants to stop the hosts from taking advantage of a possible end-of-the-world scenario. He now wants to destroy the species that he became addicted to, and which ended up with the loss of his family. Much of this is his own doing, while Caleb was altered and redirected by someone else. We are definitely seeing a deep dive on grey characters, and the humans we've looked at during this season highly represent this notion. But we also get this with the hosts, and Dolores is an example that I think they've portrayed really well. She knows that the only way humanity can destroy this current system is by themselves. She's alone in her quest, and by making Caleb understand what's happened, she sees him as her but for the human race. However, the one host that I haven't been impressed with, especially in this episode, is Maeve. Maeve was one of my favourite characters leading into this season, but now it just seems like her purpose to fight is based on joining her daughter along with the death of Hector. With Hector, I can understand her motives to some degree, especially in the short term. However, Maeve's act of sacrifice in Season 2 was very much one that felt like she was never going to join her daughter, and personally I thought she would have understood that. It just seems to me like she's been forced into an opposition for Dolores. Either way, I hope they prove me wrong in the final episode, and maybe aligning Maeve with a story path going forward that seems more interesting. Regardless, I really enjoyed this episode, and I'm very intrigued to see what revolution we are looking at. But anyway, let me know what you thought of episode 7 and tell me if you picked out anything that I didn't, or any predictions you have for the final episode. I'm looking forward to reading all of your reactions. For reviews and recaps of every Westworld episode along with coverage for the rest of this season, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Again, if you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like rating. I will be reviewing the last episode of Season 3 along with posting a trailer breakdown for episode 8. I will also be uploading a prediction video for the final episode sometime in the week. But let me know what you thought of the latest episode down below in the comment section. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.